Hey there, Taoist. Thanks for joining me today. So, whether you're just beginning to read the Tao Te Ching or returning to it for your thousandth time, today we're exploring one of its most profound and elusive ideas, Wu Ming, the nameless. Now, we all know the text opens with a paradox. The Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao, and the name that can be named is not the eternal name. But what does that really mean? And what does it ask of us, not just as thinkers, but as people living in the real world and interacting with the real world and real people, real situations and real experiences? So without further ado, let's begin. You've seen the words, the Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. The nameless is the beginning of heaven and earth. The named is the mother of 10,000 things. These are not lines meant to be decoded like a puzzle. They are not doctrines. They're invitations. The Tao Te Ching opens not with certainty, but with a gesture toward mystery. It tells us right away that we are about to read cannot fully hold what it points to. Tells us that language, even at its most poetic, is still a boundary. And it offers us a name for what lies beyond naming. Wu Ming, the nameless. In the world Lao Tzu knew, as in ours, names brought order. To name something was to define its use, to fix its role, to draw its limits. In early Chinese political life, the rectification of names, the idea that each role and label in society should be correct and precise, was a foundational idea. But Lao Tzu takes a different path. He does not begin with what should be, but with what already is. He looks beyond the structures of the human world, past the rituals of court, past the titles of kings and sages. And there, beneath it all, is the Tao. And before the Tao takes on shape, before it becomes known, before it becomes spoken, it is Wu Ming, the nameless, the silent source, the uncarved block from which all things arise. To understand Wu Ming is not to grasp a theory, it's to experience a kind of quiet recognition that there is a deeper layer beneath our words, beneath the systems we build to make sense of life. A world before thought. This does not mean chaos. Wu Ming is not disorder. It is not confusion or randomness. It is wholeness before division. A field of potential before the lines are drawn. We may call this spirit or silence or origin, but all these things are just more names. And Wu Ming reminds us that the origin itself does not require naming. It simply is. If we pause to reflect, we can feel how often naming controls the way we engage with the world. We do not merely say, this is a tree. We say, this tree is valuable, or this tree is in my way. We turn the tree into a category, a function, an obstacle, a resource. But long before that, before the label, before the judgment, the tree was simply there, growing, existing, changing with the wind and the season. Wu Ming asks us to return to that moment, the moment before the definition, the moment when the tree is not even tree, but form, movement, stillness, life. In Taoist thought, the goal is not to reject names altogether. Language is not the enemy. We were asked to see its limits, to recognize that names are maps, not the territory. Just as the Tao cannot be fully spoken, reality cannot be fully contained in labels. And so the sage does not cling to language. She uses it lightly, like a walking stick, over uneven ground. Support, not certainty. She speaks when needed, but she listens more. She acts, but she does not impose. The sage follows the Tao not by mastering knowledge, but by becoming simple, by unlearning the need to fix everything in place, by letting things speak for themselves, without the noise of constant commentary. In many ways, this teaching stands in quiet defiance of the systems we build. Not only political systems, but mental ones. Structures of belief, of preference, of identity. We spend more of our lives arranging the world into categories: who we are, what we do, what's good, what's bad. But Wu Ming asks, what happens when we set those categories down? Not to deny them, but to hold them loosely, To see that moment before naming, before desire, before division, is still here, underneath everything. In early Taoist circles, this was more than a metaphysical idea. It was a path of personal transformation. The one who could live from a place of Wu Ming, who could meet the world without forcing it to be one thing or another, was called Zhen Ren, the true person. Not because they had found the right identity, but because they had stopped clinging to one. They were empty enough to reflect the world as it was, and full enough to respond with harmony. To be nameless in this way is not to disappear, it has become clear. There is a kind of freedom here that is quiet and unfamiliar. Not the freedom to choose endlessly, but the freedom to let go of needing to choose at all. The freedom to simply be present with what is, not what we call it. This too is part of the way, and the way does not explain itself. It is not rush, it flows. Naming is a form of separation. The moment we give something a name, we place it apart from us, apart from everything else. This is a river, but once named, it is no longer part of the landscape. It becomes a thing, a unit, a resource to map, to measure, to use. This is who I am. But once named, that identity becomes fixed. It can harden around us. And what was once a flowing life becomes a performance, a repetition. Taoism invites us to return to the place before the split, before the subject and object, name and thing, observer and observed. Wu Ming is not just about the outer world, it's about how we see ourselves. Before you called anything, before you were given a name, a role, a set of expectations, you were still here. You were not lacking. You were not fragmented. You were simply present. And that presence is still available. The sage knows this. He does not need to be seen a certain way. He does not need to argue about names. He lets others define things while he remains close to the root. As Lao Tzu writes, the sage puts himself last and becomes first. He lets go of self and becomes preserved. It's in chapter 7. There's something deeply countercultural here, both then and now. In Lao Tzu's time, the prevailing ideal was the Confucian gentleman, the one who knew all the proper names and roles, ruler and subject, father and son, elder and younger. Harmony in that view came from knowing your place and living up to it. Lao Tzu offers a different kind of harmony, one that arises not from the order imposed, but from the order discovered, from trust, not control, from water, not walls. Water never insists. It flows where it can, and yet over time it wears down stone. It nourishes without demanding praise. It takes no form but fills every form it enters. That is the spirit of Wu Ming, the source that nourishes all things without needing recognition. To live in alignment with it is not to reject form, but to remember the formless. To move in the world, but not to be entangled by it. To see that names are useful, but not ultimate. So, what does this look like in real life? It may look like stillness in the middle of noise. It may look like listening without waiting to reply. It may feel like walking through the day without needing to prove anything. It may be the moment you stop trying to name what you are feeling and you just feel it. In all of this, Wu Ming is not absence. It is presence without clinging. Not a void, but a wholeness that does not need to be divided. To understand Wu Ming is not only to reflect on ancient philosophy, it's to begin noticing the way we construct the world each day. Noticing how quickly the mind moves to label, I like this. This is not for me. That is success. That is failure. These judgments are fast, automatic, invisible even. But before them, there is something else. A moment. Brief but often missed. When we are just seeing, just hearing, just being. Wu Ming lives in that space, not as an idea, but as a condition of awareness. When we stop naming, we are not confused. We are not lost. We are simply quiet. In that quiet, something shifts. The artist feels in the moment before the brush touches canvas, when the image is still forming, not yet constrained. The musician feels it in the pause before the note, when the silence still holds every possibility. The child feels it when she sees something for the first time, not needing to explain it, only to wonder. This is the power of the nameless. It is not about withdrawing from the world. It is about meeting the world without immediately dividing it into parts. The early Taoists understood that too much analysis can dull perception. Too much explanation can make life feel thin, flat, overlit. But when we let go of constant interpretation, the world deepens. We no longer stare at categories, we start to see. And what we see is not always what we expect. Because when we stop trying to make things mean something, we sometimes find they already do, in a different way. This has nothing to do with laziness or passivity. Wu Ming is not an escape, it's not an excuse, it's not a refusal to engage with problems or the world. Rather, it's a posture of receptivity. It is a softening of the grip we usually keep so tight around everything: our beliefs, our roles, our own self image. In modern life, identity is often treated as something solid, a thing to be built, defended, performed. But the Taoist view reminds us who we are is not fixed, it is flowing. To return to Wu Ming is to step out of the performance. Not forever, but just enough. Just enough to see that you are not the name you were given, not the job title, the social role, the inner script. Those are useful, but they are not you. Who you are, before the names, is already whole. It does not need to explain itself to be real. That is the paradox. The more we try to name what we are seeking, the more it slips through our grasp. But when we are quiet, we do not chase it. It often arrives. Not with fanfare, not with a final answer, but with presence. A kind of grounded clarity, a sense of being home even without a signpost. This is the way of the nameless, and it's not far away, and it never has been. In many traditions, to name something is to gain power over it. To define is to dominate. To give a name is to claim understanding, even ownership. In the ancient world, this was often literal. To know the true name of a spirit, a person, or a god was to have influence. In some texts, even the act of naming creation was an assertion of control. But Wu Ming stands apart from that lineage. It does not seek mastery, it seeks alignment. Taoism does not begin with domination over the world, it begins with observation, quiet, patient, open. The sage does not impose meaning, the sage watches until meaning reveals itself. In this way, Wu Ming is not about what we take from the world, it is about how we relate to it. And in Taoist thought, we are not separate from the world we observe. We are part of the same flowing whole. The 10,000 things, the hills, the rivers, the animals, the winds, are not there to be conquered. They are there to be honored, to be listened to. This is why nature appears again and again in Taoist texts. The wind does not ask permission to blow. The stream does not force its way forward. It follows the land. The mountain is not proud of its stillness. It is still because it is. And so the sage is taught to move like water, to bend like bamboo, to root deeply like a tree. To trust what is simple is not lesser, only more real. When you walk in the forest, you are not asked to explain everything. You are not required to name each bird call or classify each leaf. You can, of course, but the forest does not need you to. It continues whether or not you understand it. And that's the mystery of Wu Ming. Not that it hides itself, but that it asks nothing. It's not a secret to be unlocked, it's a presence to be noticed. And this may feel unfamiliar in a world where value is often tied to articulation, where we are taught to speak our truths, assert our knowledge, define our identities, and all of these have their place. But Wu Ming offers a different kind of truth, a truth that does not speak in slogans or arguments, a truth that reveals itself in the absence of force. Think of how a pool of water reflects the sky, not because it tries to, but because it is still, because it does not interfere. Wu Ming is like that. It is the original stillness that allows all things to arise, the space between the notes, the quiet before the word. And when we learn to dwell in that place, even briefly, something in us begins to soften. We stop needing to make the world be something, and we start allowing it to show us what it already is. We see the changing light. We hear the wind move through dry leaves. We notice the rhythm of our own breath, no longer trying to control it. This is not detachment, it is intimacy, deeper than control allows. Because it does not filter through concept, it does not require names. It only asks us to be present and to let the presence be enough. If the Tao is the way, then Wu Ming is how the way begins, without noise, without shape, without striving. It is the part of reality that does not need to be described in order to be true, the part that remains untouched by opinion, comparison, and control. We're not asked to abandon the world of names. We live in it. We speak, we act, we define. But the wisdom of Taoism is in remembering that this is not the whole of things. There is a deeper layer, one that does not demand explanation, one that simply is. When we sit in silence, not to escape, but to listen, Wu Ming is there. When we walk without narrating, observe without labeling, breathe without trying to change anything, Wu Ming is there. It is not asked to be found, and it does not ask to need belief. It is not separate from life. It is life before the filter. In a world that often demands certainty, Wu Ming offers space. In a culture built around achievement and identity, it offers a kind of anonymity that is not erasure but peace. Not everything that matters needs to be named, and not every truth fits into a sentence. Some things reveal themselves only when we stop trying to define them. Lao Tzu never gives a clear picture of the Tao because that would contradict its nature. Instead, he speaks in images: a water, valley, mystery, wind, child, mother, void. Each one points beyond itself. Each one gestures toward the space where naming falls away. We're invited into that space, not to abandon form, but to hold it loosely, not to discard language, but to speak with less attachment, not to lose ourselves, but to remember the part of us that was never divided to begin with. You may call it stillness or origin or presence, or not call it anything at all. That is the beauty of Wu Ming. Its power is not in what it explains, but in what it opens. A kind of gentle clarity, a kind of way of seeing that does not close the hand around what is seen. So, what does this mean for us here and now? It means we can step back even just for a moment from the effort to define everything. It means we can meet the world without needing to capture it. It means we can let ourselves be part of the pattern without always needing to control where the pattern goes. We're not separate from the flow, we are in it. And when we let go of the name, even for a breath, we sometimes find that we are already home. There's nothing left to chase, nothing more to prove, just the quiet rhythm of the world alive, unspoken, whole. Thanks for walking this path with me today, guys. The Tao does not demand that we understand everything. It simply asks that we listen, that we notice, and that we trust what we cannot always be named. Wu Ming is not a conclusion, it's a return to quiet, to stillness, to the space where things begin. If this resonated with you, take it with you into the day, or better yet, leave it unnamed and just let it live. Until next time, stay soft, stay open, and stay close to the way.